Welcome to On Point. I'm your host, Roger McConnell, and I'll be here every other Tuesday at 1 p.m. with topical shows addressing the needs and concerns of military veterans and active duty personnel. Into the KGPR studio today is Mrs. Toni Taylor, a temporary civilian, and we'll get into that in a little while, but welcome to KGPR.
Thank
Toni.
you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. We first met in 2011 in Starbucks.
Yep.
You were
I was a barista working in Starbucks for a little while. I didn't really work there for that long. But yeah, I remember you were our regular customer.
Oh yeah.
Never failed. You were always there.
Oh yeah. Well, that's another story. But that's not your first stint. You had been Starbucks where you'd grown up.
That was my first job. Yeah, when I was in high school. It was a great job to get when you're 16, and they took really good care of me. Worked around school, sports, everything. So I just kind of came back to them.
But while you were in Starbucks, or when you were in Starbucks in 2011, you also had another job.
Yes, I was a Marine reservist. I moved out here with my husband and was traveling from here to Spokane to do my drill 1 weekend a month. So that was my part-time job that I did with Starbucks.
So you had to go over there. And what would you do during the course of a normal weekend as a reservist?
It kind of depended. In Spokane, I was with Papa Battery. So they were an artillery unit, actually, and I ran their supply section when I came for my drill. And it was a lot of fun. You know, I learned all about the weapon systems that they fired. I actually had a couple friends that I went to college with that I also drilled with. You know, a lot of annual training. Usually it was annual training, physical fitness, but it kind of varied from weekend to weekend what we did.
Okay. Now, you joined the Marines when?
I joined in 2011, right out of high school. I met with a recruiter in 2006 and actually joined up and then went to boot camp.
In 2007 or 11?
I joined the Marine Corps in 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, initially. And I was 17, went to boot camp 9 days after I graduated high school. And as crazy as it sounds, I loved every minute of it. I had a great time at boot camp.
Now, what prepared you for that? You grew up in Washington. Mm-hmm. You... What got you interested in joining the Marines? That's not too many girls do that.
No, I actually liked the fact that not a lot of girls did that. But when I was younger, when I was 11, these kids came to my school and talked about this organization called Civil Air Patrol. His name was Matt Hall. He was just a young kid like me and told me how much fun it was, and you get to volunteer, and it's very military, and it just really excited me. So I went to the first drill. They called it drill also. It's just like a squadron meeting for CAP. And I went with a couple friends from high school, and they immediately got scared because it was military. You know, you kind of got yelled at. You know, they put you in formation. It was very intimidating. And they stopped instantly. And I kept going for 10 years.
Do you like the structure or the regimentation?
I loved every bit of it. I liked that they yelled at me when I messed up. I liked that we did, you know, drill and ceremonies, customs and courtesies. I got to wear a military uniform. Not something a lot of 11-year-olds get to do. And I just,
or want to do.
Oh, exactly. Or want to do. I was the only person in my high school that actually did it and stayed with it. And I had a lot of fun, and it really got me in the military mindset.
So that was in 2000?
2001 was when I joined Civil Air Patrol.
When you joined Civil Air Patrol.
And I was in it all through middle school and high school.
You grew up, though, in a town in Washington. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that. You were where'd you fit into your family constellation?
I was the youngest of 3 girls, and my mom and dad obviously were there. We grew up in a small farm in Adna, Washington, which nobody knows where it is. So I just tell everybody I'm from Chehalis. If they don't know where that is, I just say I'm 2 hours south of Seattle.
Okay, that makes sense.
Very small town, small school. I think there were 40 kids in my class.
That is a small rural school.
Yeah, not unlike a lot of places in Montana too.
Well, that's exactly right. I worked in one of those.
Yeah.
But how'd you do in school?
I did good in school as far as grades. I played sports. I was in band. I was active. But for some reason, I just never really felt like I fit in to any specific group. I had a couple friends, but I just didn't really fit into the high school atmosphere. I didn't like drama. I wasn't really into boys. I was just kind of doing my own thing most of the time, which is what really attracted me to CAP. because
You kind of found yourself there, you think. It just... yeah.
definitely.
Well, the one good thing that came out of school, though, and your music program, was you learned how to play the trumpet, right?
Yeah, yes, I did.
And you have played taps for the Montana Veterans Memorial on how many occasions? 2? Or?
A few, yeah, 2 or 3 times. That's probably the one song I can still play on my trumpet.
And we're thankful of that. It sounds great. You look great in the uniform, and it really adds a lot to our ceremony. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I love doing it.
While you were in the Civil Air Patrol, you had a mentor.
Yes.
Tell me about him.
His name was Captain Rothmeyer. He was a captain in the Army, and he was a Chinook pilot. And
for people who don't know, a Chinook is
it's a big helicopter in the Army. It's got 2 props
2 rotors,
on
one
top
at
of
each end. Yeah.
yeah, on very top. It kind of looks like a funky L-shape helicopter. You can't miss it if you ever see one.
They're mostly, Marines use them for troop transport.
Yes.
But the Army mostly uses them for cargo transportation.
Yeah,
lifting things.
I think so. Yeah, they mostly do cargo, and they do some troop transport, I think.
But this guy, you had an amazing experience with him one night that really motivated you to...
Yes. So I met him through Civil Air Patrol. He came and volunteered with us at our squadron meeting, and I was up for a promotion, and he had to do it was like an interview to get promoted, and they just ask you questions and see if you're ready to be promoted. And I think I was like 13 at the time or something, and he asked me at the end of it, he's like, I don't understand why you haven't promoted faster. He's like, I mean, I feel like you've been in for a while. Why aren't you an officer by now? And I looked at him and I was like, well, I am only 13. And he had no idea. He thought I was 17 or 18 and way behind the curve. And come to find out, I was actually way ahead of my peers. So
that's really cool. But so the flying, that kind of stuck with you, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. So back to Starbucks again. You were at the time a reservist. Then what happened?
Well, like I said, I'd moved out here with my husband, so I was doing the reserve thing, and I wanted to have a job to make my own money because I didn't want to just depend on my husband, because that's the kind of person I am. So I started talking to the local Marine recruiter out here, and found out that they had a position open for it's called an EAD recruiter, but it's basically someone that goes from being a reservist to being an active duty recruiter. And I jumped on that in an instant because I was looking for a way to be more active with the Marine Corps because I missed it. And so they brought me on as a recruiter. I joined full time and had a really great time recruiting out here in Montana.
In the mall there in Great Falls?
Yeah, we actually started across the street from the mall.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
In that little tiny dinky building, and I was so glad when we moved because I hated that place. And we had a bigger office in the mall now, and it's a lot more accessible to a lot of people.
How'd you do as a recruiter?
I actually did really well. They'd never had a female out here before recruit for the Marine Corps, and I think it was a dynamic that was very much needed by the population, because I went to schools and people just didn't know what to think of me, and I mostly attracted a lot of females, which they had a hard time recruiting before me. I got awarded Rookie Recruiter of the Quarter, my first quarter out here, so I was on track to do really well as a recruiter.
Right. So you would go out to the schools then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I went as far as Browning. I went to Great Falls High here in town. I went to Lewistown a few times, and all the small ones in between. Honestly, I can't remember. Fairfield, Sims, stuff like that.
And you were all dressed up in your dress blues and
oh, yeah.
looking strike, I'm sure.
Every time, yeah. I had to wear my blues everywhere.
How many high school students would you suppose you recruited in the course of your... How long were you a recruiter now?
About 2 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. How many would you suppose you recruited in that 2-year period?
I think I recruited roughly 30, I want to say, which is a pretty big number for the Marine Corps because our mission is very small compared to the other branches. But I did probably not quite double what every other recruiter was doing out here. So I did pretty well.
Of the 30, how many were women, young women?
I want to say about 15, about half.
Whoa. And normally the percentage of females in military ranks is about what, 20?
In the Marine Corps, 5%.
Yeah, I think in the Army and the other services it might be up to like 20% or something. 11% sticks to my mind from stand downs, but
Could be.
yeah, that's not a great number. So you're doing your bit, and I hope this does a little something to increase the enrollment of females in the ranks.
Might, yeah.
Yeah, you did, as we were talking earlier, you mentioned that it is kind of a macho service, but you feel as if you can pull your own weight.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's something I really liked that attracted me to the Marine Corps, because Civil Air Patrol is an Air Force organization. So going through that, I learned all the Air Force stuff. And then when I finally got old enough to go meet with recruiters, I met with every branch. And I met with the Marine Corps last. And I was so just, I don't know if my recruiter was just really good or what, but he just got me hooked on the equality in the Marine Corps. The physical fitness is higher, the standards are. I loved everything about it, especially the fact that not many females can do it. I really was attracted to that because I like going above and beyond.
So you're a little competitive.
My husband says I'm the most competitive person he's met.
Okay, I was trying to underplay that, but that's okay.
It's okay, you don't have to.
Speaking of Mark, your husband, you married him in 2011.
Yes.
But he was instrumental in another event in your life. You, at an earlier stage, had gone to Marine Corps OCS.
Yes.
As a reservist, was it?
Well, I was in the reserves when I went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a moment.
So I went to college right after I got out of boot camp, started drilling and everything. And while I was in college, during my sophomore year, I put in my application to become an officer in the Marine Corps. That was always my end goal. I wanted to do the reserves, but I always wanted to be an officer eventually. So I applied for the platoon leaders course, which is just a program to become an officer. I went to the 10-week OCS course between my sophomore and junior year of college and graduated. And that was in 2009. And I graduated OCS successfully. I was second in my platoon, had a great time there.
Cool.
And then went back to college to finish.
What do you mean to finish?
To finish college.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can't commission until you graduate college. So I went back to school to finish up college. And Mark and I had a really hard time while I was OCS. We just, missed each other, young love, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it is good stuff.
Yeah, it was very great. And he was in ROTC for the Air Force. And he was a year ahead of me in college. So, we're dating through college. He commissioned and left to California for follow-on training. And during that, we were kind of discussing how difficult it was going to be for us if I also commissioned in the Marine Corps. And I started to realize it wasn't really a possibility if we wanted to stay together.
You weren't married at the time?
No, we were just dating. This was, my last year of college. And I flew down to see him in California a couple times, and he didn't convince me. He wasn't him pressuring me at all. We just kind of realized together that it was up to me to decide if I was going to stay in or get out. So I decided to decline my commission to the Marine Corps so that I could be with Mark. And I figured I still have the reserves. I'm not out completely. I'm just not commissioning. And 2011, the beginning of that year, I decided to give up my commission. I called and told my recruiter, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I love Mark. And he engaged. He proposed about a month later, and we were married May of 2011.
And Mark is a very fine guy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I've met him on several occasions, and how can you not like him?
He's great. Everybody loves him. He's awesome.
Well, I think the same could be said of you, too.
Oh, thanks.
You're a recruiter in town. Pick up the story from there.
So I was doing my recruiting thing. It was, going really well. Like I said, recruiting a lot of females. And
and you were technically active at that point?
Yes.
Then. Okay.
Yeah, active duty. Had a great time doing it. I loved being active. I loved the fact that I was doing something with the Marine Corps on a full-time basis. Honestly, the reserve thing was great. It just wasn't really doing it for me. I wanted to be a Marine all the time. I wanted to be in the military since I was 12. So, of course, I want to do it full time. And then I kind of started to realize and think back on the decisions I'd made. I was very happy with Mark. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy about that decision. But definitely decided it was time that I try again for my commission. So I talk to the people that I worked with. It just so happened that in a recruiting command, you also have an officer selection office that can recruit officers to commission. So I got talking to him. He said there's a very good possibility you can reapply and still get your commission, which I was extremely shocked because I figured, once I declined it once, they probably wouldn't want anything to do with me. But as it turns out, I put in my application, and I want to say that was about 2013. No. Yeah, 2013. I started putting in my application again, and to my surprise, I got accepted.
Let me reintroduce you really quickly. Now, at this point in the story, you were a Sergeant E5, were you not?
Yes, I got promoted while on recruiting duty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to reintroduce, I guess you're still a Sergeant E5, Toni Taylor, a United States Marine, living here in Great Falls, just about set to go to your second stint in OCS. Third stint.
Yeah, getting ready to go to my third.
Okay, well, you went on another time.
Yes.
And this was June of 13, was it?
Yes.
Did you go back to OCS? Now, this is a pretty traumatic story. I know when we were talking about it, I could see some wounds there.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Like I said before, they accepted my application, which I was very excited about. It was a very difficult decision because Mark was still in the Air Force, so we were going to be separated once again, which is never easy for a married couple.
No.
But I started my preparation. I took a month off, just took a month of leave before I left for OCS. Went said goodbye to family because I had no idea when I'd be coming back. Started training. Physical fitness was very important at OCS. And then I got in my Mini Cooper and I drove from Great Falls to Virginia. Took 3 days and started training I think I started OCS June 3rd of 2013.
And you went through how many weeks?
It was a 10-week program once again.
10 weeks?
Yeah, so they had to redo the whole 10 weeks. Made it to week 7.
Week 7.
Yes.
Week 7. Now, the first day of week 7, was it, that you went into the pugil
sticks, yeah.
Pugil stick training?
Mm-hmm. It's a type of hand-to-hand combat training. The pugil stick, it's like a giant Q-tip, basically, that you hold on to and hit each other with.
Doesn't it have a tip at each end, though?
Yeah, it's like a big Q-tip. So it's got these big ball
Q-tip has
things.
a puff at each
yeah,
end, too.
padded things. Yeah, and you wear like a helmet and a flak jacket and a groin guard. And, I mean, you're fighting each other. You're not to the death, obviously, but it's practice for fighting with a rifle. So we hold on to these things and you fight each other. You're supposed to use proper technique that they teach us just to make sure that we know the technique, we can grasp it, and that we're being aggressive because
that's right.
Marines are, we're aggressive people. So they got to teach you to be that way.
They don't have to teach you.
No, they don't have to teach me. I'm born that way, I guess.
So anyhow, you were one of 5 ladies.
Yes.
Selected to go pugil stick with a guy, against a guy.
Yeah, so we fought against females first. I was in a platoon of females, and there were 3 platoons of males in our company. And on a pugil stick day, you fight against people in your same gender. So I fought against females, and I basically kicked their asses. Sorry, butts. You can't probably say that on the radio.
Yeah, we can.
But I beat them pretty good because I've done it before, and most of these females are not in the military. They are coming straight from college and have no experience with it. So I beat them pretty good, and so I was kind of voted on as one of the 5 females to go fight against the guys.
Right. Now, you had, before this particular bout with this guy, you had helped mentored a lot of these kids. And you're still a kid, essentially, but you had mentored a lot of these people through some of their trying times. So you had bonded with them. They looked up to you. They respected you. They voted you into the bout with the guy.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to pick it up from there? Or?
Sure. Yeah, I was pretty honored to be voted to do that because, women Marines especially, we have a lot of pride. We want to be equal with the males. So when we get a chance to essentially show off, we, take that to heart. So they voted me to fight with this guy, and I was all for it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to kick this guy's butt. And, they had smaller males. So whoever weighed the least, that's who they had fight us. It didn't matter about their skill level. So I was roughly, 140 pounds. This guy was 145, 150, somewhere in my weight range.
Sure.
So they're getting me ready. There's a couple fights before me, female male fights.
And
so this girl's getting me ready, putting my helmet on, putting my flak and Kevlar on, and right before I go into this fight, it's like a flash of a second in my head, I was thinking to myself, what if I get hurt doing this? That would really suck.
Yeah.
It just kind of popped into my head, and it was out as soon as it came in. Because I was like, no, that's stupid. It's not going to happen. It's pugil sticks.
Right.
People don't get hurt.
Padding,
yeah, people don't get hurt doing this. So I go into my fight. I'm looking this guy in the eyes, and
that's before you actually encountered each other, right?
Well, we walk into the ring,
okay,
facing each other, 2 feet away from each other, and there's I don't even know what you call him, a McMap instructor. He's our martial arts, a referee, okay. Essentially, yes. He's asking, are you ready? And I shake my head. Are you ready? He nods his head. And the fight starts. And
you're supposed to be hitting each other with the pugil stick.
Exactly. We're supposed to be hitting each other using techniques that we had learned earlier in training. And instead, this guy runs at me as hard as he can and just basically pushes me over. I call it bulldozing into me.
Bull rush, yeah.
Yeah, which isn't really allowed. And I guess the guys had been getting in trouble for that most of the morning because they were just doing that in their fights, and that's not a real fight. So this guy runs into me, knocks me over. I fall out of the ring and land. Basically, I put an arm down behind me to kind of catch myself. And I didn't realize I was falling out of the ring, which is, about a foot drop extra from what I had to fall. And I land on my arm, and I just hear a snap.
Oof.
And I just knew instantly that it was broken.
Oof.
Yeah. But when you're in training like that, you kind of get numb to things like that. And I didn't really think about it. I was kind of thinking that I could just kind of play it off like it never happened. So I get up and I run off to the side, and there's this girl there to help me take my gear off. And I look at her and I said, I think I broke my arm. And she's looking at me like, what are you talking about? You seem fine. I was like, no, it's broken. And I take my gear off, and the corpsman comes over, and he looks at my arm, and he's like, well, it could just be a bone bruise. Can you make it through the rest of the day? And I said, oh, yeah, I'll be fine. I'll just hide it, In my head, I knew it was broken, but when you're in training like that, you have, we call it recruit mind at boot camp. You just don't really think things through. Because my only mindset was to get through OCS. So I walk away like nothing's wrong, except for I'm kind of holding my arm up, and someone notices. They take me to medical. It's broken in half.
Oh, boy.
So that was probably one of the worst days of my life.
I'm sure it was.
Because
I saw the wounds. Anyhow, the Marines, that essentially was the end of your OCS.
Yes.
They called you, and they actually kind of gave you a suspension of Marine Corps duty, right? Are you not in the Marines right now?
No, I am not in. This is the first time since I was 17 that I'm not in the Marine Corps. Because when I went to OCS, my enlistment was almost over. So my enlistment ended when I broke my arm, essentially. So I got dropped from training that day, and then my enlistment's over. So I have nothing to do with the Marine Corps for this entire year. I came home. My arm healed. The Marine Corps paid for that, obviously, because it's kind of their fault. So now I'm working as a veterinary technician at Great Falls Veterinary Service with Dr. Rick Helms. Great guy, great job. But hopefully it's not the end.
Well, wait a minute, though. Now there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You are going to reinitiate the OCS.
Yes.
When is that going to happen?
I actually just found out a couple weeks ago that I got re-medically qualified to go back to OCS for the 3rd time. That is pretty much unheard of. I'm not sure, but I think I'm the only person to ever go back for the 3rd time. I mean, it's abuse when you're there, so.
well, you graduated the first time.
Yep.
And the second time, it wasn't your fault. You didn't graduate.
Yeah.
You did well in everything else. So you're going back for the 3rd time.
Yes.
And you're going to go once again to Quantico, is it?
Yes, Quantico, Virginia is where the training is at.
And it'll be a 6-week course
Yes.
this time.
So since I made it so far the second time, and was doing so well in training, they gave me a highly recommendation to go back to a shorter course, just because I've already proven myself.
Exactly.
I just have to make it to the end.
But something else came up. When you applied for the OCS again, you also did what?
I took a flight aptitude exam.
And you
And I passed. And I got accepted to go as an aviation contract.
Which essentially means that after OCS, after you accept your commission, 3 months from today or so?
Yep. I will go July 6th is when training starts. I graduate August 16th. And then I go to a 6-month basic course, basically, for all officers. And then after that, it's straight on to Pensacola, Florida for flight school.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, you want to fly
I would love to fly the Cobra.
Cobra. That's
Yes.
an attack helicopter.
Yes.
That's a bad machine.
Yes.
And the Marine Corps one is a souped-up version of the Cobra that flew in Vietnam.
Yeah, it's the Super Cobra, they call it. I don't know the exact designation, but it's been ramped up a lot. It's got a lot of improvements. They made it a lot more like the Army Apache, which is a much more advanced aircraft than the original Cobra.
I wonder why the Marines don't fly Apaches.
It's too expensive.
Oh,
So
well, that's right. The Marines have to go on budget.
We kind of get the short end of the stick money-wise.
Well, you get the short end of the stick in a lot of ways. You pull the grunt work. You guys do the toughest part of battle.
Yeah.
But here's a question I got for you. Considering your love of animals, you work as a veterinary assistant, when faced with a decision in support of your Marines, as you're flying an attack helicopter, a Cobra, are you going to be able to pull the trigger against those enemy soldiers?
You know, I love animals. I love people too, obviously, but in my eyes, animals are innocent. Yeah, I've never been much of a hunter. I have no problem eating meat, but I've never hunted because I believe animals are innocent, and people, in my eyes, aren't always innocent. I know that might sound kind of wrong, but when it comes between an enemy's life and my Marine's life, I know I'd be able to do whatever it takes to save my Marines.
Well, I'm here looking into your eyes as you're saying that, and I think you're going to do the right thing for your Marines.
Thank you.
So that's good news. But then again, there's always now, what do they use for dust-off ships in the Marines? Medevacs.
Oh, we have Osprey now, actually. We use Osprey for medevacs. We also use Hueys.
Okay.
We have a couple different aircraft that we use for
Well,
that.
would you consider doing that?
You know, actually, you get 3 choices. It's like your top 3 choices in flight school. Number 1 for me would be Cobra, Huey, and then the Super Stallion would be my third. It's kind of like a big gunship.
Oh, okay, I've seen those.
It goes on sea a lot more, but it's also used for medevac, and I think I would love doing something like that.
Those dust-off pilots are the bravest people I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, they fly into some sketchy places.
Yes, so that's all the respect goes to the dust-off folks. They are major courageous people. Toni Taylor, my friend from Starbucks, I'm so honored to know you. I'm serious. This is great, and I think you're going to lead the way for a lot of young women who can find themselves in the service too, and have as happy a life and as dedicated a life to the Marine Corps as you've had.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming in, Toni.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
On Point continues to air every other Tuesday at 1 p.m. on Montana Public Radio, KGPR, Great Falls. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future shows, please contact me, Roger McConnell, at 406-799-6709 or an email onpointkgpr@bresnan.net.